Alright, so this video is going to be to walk through how to effectively use the FS flight control program and different things you can do to kind of supplement your training in the sim. So, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to load up the sim and the aircraft of choice through P3D, but all of the other changes such as weather, position, etc. can be adjusted not from the menus up here within the simulator itself, but rather can be quickly made on FS Flight Control. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the view right here to a lock spot. I'm going to get out of virtual reality, and I'll just show you where we are right now. So as you can see right now, we are on FS Flight Control. We are in the Hammerhead off of runway 15 right, and it's kind of busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we probably don't need all this right now. So what I'll do is I'll take off the ILS markers. I'm going to take off the airports. I'm going to take off the airspace. I'm going to take off the VOR, or I'm going to put on the VOR, excuse me. I'll take off the taxi and park, and then I'll take off the NDBs. Okay, so now we're just on the end of runway 15 right. So let's say that a student wanted to practice a straight-in approach. You would go to the position bar. You would type in your ICAO. In our case, it's Randolph. And let's say we just wanted to put ourselves on a 3-mile final. You can click the 3-mile final. The sim will do a little bit of loading. And depending on the quality of your computer and how they have everything loaded, it will take anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute. So just be patient with it. As you can see, it repositioned the airplane onto a 3-mile final. And the simulator is paused. You could basically take the simulator off of pause and fly the straight in, and you can get multiple reps. So that's the way that you would get multiple reps of a straight in. If you wanted to practice your perch, you could do the same thing right here. You click the downwind. We're in a position where we could practice perching. So if you wanted to do a custom location, for example, if you wanted to put yourself, like you wanted to for sure be at the perch, you could put yourself at a 45-degree angle 1 mile from the runway at an altitude of 1800 on a heading of, for runway 15 right, that would be 325. And that puts us kind of right in a position where you can get off pause and begin your perch. So as you can see right there, that's kind of a different way you can change the positions inside the sim. And you can do it for different runways. And you can also do it for MOA work. So if you wanted to go straight to the MOA, just go to the air work. You could click flight level 100, and it puts you right out there. Now, that's one way to reposition. Another way to reposition is to go to the map. And so in this case, we'll open up airspace. We'll find the RAN MOA, which is right here, and we'll click the reposition aircraft button. We'll hover our mouse where we want to go, click it. We can change our aircraft parameters. In this case, we're putting all of this, we're just going to leave all this information. You can change your configuration and then press reposition. And then as you can see, it put us at the spot we clicked in. It's loading this scenario, and you take it off pause, and now you can see we're in the MOA. And it's changing the configuration based off what we had done. So my recommendation is to go through and kind of click on the different markers and information tiles that you want. It can get hectic pretty quickly, but what it seems like most of the IPs prefer, take the VOR DMEs off. They like the airspace. And then they like runways, ILSs if they're doing vectors. Pilot Edge is good because this will give you other traffic when you're logged into Pilot Edge. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They like to leave the maps off. This kind of dark background makes it easier to see, but if you wanted to put on a street or satellite map to talk about ground references, for example, here at Randolph, we talk about different highways that we use and stuff, so it's nice to be able to see which highways are and then superimpose it onto the sim and see what they look like in the simulator. So you can use Street Map. You also can use Auto Zoom and Center, and it'll basically, as you fly around, it'll stay around, it'll kind of hug the airplane and zoom it out based off what you're doing. So if you're at a high altitude thing, it'll assume you're in a navigation type scenario, and it'll zoom out so that you can kind of keep SA on where you are on the map. Otherwise, you can just manually zoom. So center aircraft, and then this little magenta line is the trace aircraft. I would always have that on. And then if you're doing vectors, this makes giving vectors much easier if you're going to be practicing ILS approaches. And if you want to measure your distance from something else, you click on the measure, you click on your aircraft, and then you click on something right there, and it'll tell you your distance from there. So if you're figuring out how tight you're pulling closed, if you're approaching early or late, you can kind of see maybe on your ELPs if you want to check to see if you're flying too tight or too wide. That's a good use for the measure tool. So then when you're done with it, you just click it off. So go in and explore and experiment. You're going to use different tiles for different sorties. The next thing you can change is going to be your conditions. So what I will do is I will pan around, show you kind of so we can see the sky. In this case, you can see that it looks like our current weather is being loaded from real world conditions. So you can do that. You can load conditions based off of the real world METARs, but if you want to load a specific theme, this is a good way to quickly change the weather. You can kind of click around different types of weather, as well as you can change in your ILS visibility. So if you want to take an ILS down to 200 feet, you can set custom visibility. It'll completely black out the screen, essentially, and it's just basically gonna set a layer so that you can break out right at minimums. But most of the time, you don't really need to do it like that. You can kind of just set something like heavy snows, for example. I know that the minimums, basically the cloud deck ends at minimums. If you wanted to set a custom scenario, though, you could do that as well. So what you could do is you go into the custom weather tab. You can add in different layers. So let's say from 0 to 1640 we want to do and we want the base altitude to be at 200 feet. We want it overcast. And we'll basically just do that. And we'll add a couple layers. We can send the custom weather, and now you can see that custom weather based off what we told it to do is being factored in. Again, it's only going to load it at the location that you sent it to. So in this case, because of our position, we're based at Randolph. It's not going to do it for the entire map, just to give it a little more realistic feel. You can also put in visibility layers. You can add them in, and then just send the weather. So again, it takes a little bit of playing with it to find a weather that makes sense. It really does make more sense to just click the themes because it usually gives you what you're looking for. But you can change the weather to be custom for yourself. If you need to change the time of the day, if you want to practice night flying, or this is the quickest way to do it. Doing it in the sim is probably going to change things up. So I'll just let that load. Okay, or I'll just go back to the daytime. So that's basically everything that you're going to use FS Flight Control for. You also could go into the statistics section and kind of look at what your airspeed across an approach was, or what your vertical speed across an approach was. But usually you're going to want to use a different program like Cloud Ahoy for that. But yeah, it can give you information on your approaches. What other things? All your settings are going to be found in the settings bar over here. So you can change everything from the simulator to where you're positioning at, all the conditions. You're not going to use motion or third-party stuff. Um, yeah, again, it's just, I think, more of a familiarization thing. I just go through, look at what the options are. That way, if you ever do find yourself in a position where you need to troubleshoot it, you can easily do that. Right here is another thing. Failures, you can set different failures to kind of happen randomly. So you can click random failures and, have a different systems failure, or you could potentially have an airplane fly by you. So if you're in the pattern, you could set it so that an aircraft flies by you in the pattern, and then you would have to, do the correct breakout procedure or whatever. So you basically run the simulator from this. If you've ever used an OFT, it looks pretty similar to an OFT. And that's kind of the way it was designed. I think that that's pretty much it for FS Flight Control. If you have any questions, leave your questions in the comments, and then someone from the program will get back to you.